Right, so good evening to any residents that are watching. This evening's meeting, we're going to start with an open forum, and I know there are a number of speakers who would like to share some points with us, including Simon Hill.
No, it's not you.
Along, Simon.
No, it's not you.
That's not Simon.
No.
Ah, in that case, not Simon Hill, who is expected to be with us. But we will start with the open forum. This evening meeting, we've got in the meeting itself a further planning application for 12 Shepperton Close. We've got a discussion about Carrington Close. The main outstanding issue is the 100% affordable housing, which contravenes both MK planning policies, the neighbourhood plan, and indeed the S106 statement contract. The commemorative gifts for Jubilee, a discussion about drains at the village hall, which needs repairing and possibly relaying, an update on the Gigaclear broadband installation, a request from the Youth Club for financial support, and then in part two, which is where we discuss personal, legal or commercial matters, we have two applications for the handyman, and both for the legal. John, you've got someone who's got their microphone on. And a quotation from a solicitor for the deed of transfer of the sports ground to the Parish Council with protection against future development. In case any of you don't last through to the end of the meeting, the next meeting is on the 4th of April, but the annual parish meeting, that's a meeting of the village, is actually on the 11th of April. Steve will be sending out invites to the village organisations to speak at that meeting. However, turning to the this evening's meeting in the open forum, I'd like to welcome Simon Hill.
Hi, how are you?
We're all very
seen you for many years.
Indeed.
Yeah, good evening.
Simon, did you want to sort of make some?
Yeah, I mean, John very kindly said would I come along and explain myself, I suppose, as to what I'm doing and what we're planning to do, really. So there's three subjects really in the village. Do you want me to do it in any particular order or not? No. Okay, so the first one is the railway yard, which we'll see at last we've started on. So we took many years to try and get Network Rail to sign off what was basically a works agreement with them. On live, just streamed to the village. Actually. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So we took many years to get that signed off, but anyway, it's all signed off. We're all building away. We've got 9 houses under construction as consented, and hopefully, well, we will pretty quickly. Really, we have brick houses, so we should run up pretty quickly. We had a few problems in the ground. We've got some running water, so we've a bit delayed with that, but we've overcome that, and in the foundations, and so that should progress. So leading on to, so I'd hope that we'd be done within a year there. So, but
sorry, so can I just ask? We've got heritage streetlights in the rest of the village. Have you got? Are you putting heritage streetlights in?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. The original Section 38 agreement would have specified something. I mean, if we can do it, I'll try and see. But if it's varying a Section 38, it's quite a performance. I think the problem, something in the back of my memory says they were. But we're seeing the surveyor. My son Charlie's running the site. He's over there, and we're seeing a surveyor tomorrow. Yeah, about the Section 38, so I can ask him really, because that's what I don't know the sense.
Yeah. I mean, I know on the other side, the Carrington Close side, the highways people actually haven't yet agreed the streetlight design.
Right. Okay.
So it may be that.
So presumably you want heritage lights, do you?
Yeah. I mean, the ones that we've got around in the conservation area at the moment
Yeah,
are actually being expanded at
Right,
considerable public expense in the
Okay.
rest of the village. So the whole village will have.
well, look, I mean, I don't know is the answer, but I mean, it would have been specified, I'd imagine, in the original section 38 agreement for the road. But, I mean,
Leave that with you.
I mean, it may be the top of the bell mouth might happen, but the rest of it might not. But I mean, look, I mean, I think it would look quite nice to happen. So,
Yeah.
but I don't want to make you a promise without understanding a cost implication. Really. So, yeah. But we can come back to you on that point if you like. So,
Right.
okay. So leading on to the set, are there any questions? Sorry, on the railway.
Well, the big question in the village, of course, is the tunnel or pipe or whatever.
Oh, right, yes, yeah. So it's a storm culvert that we're basically, it's an old Victorian culvert but there were pipes that ran into it already, actually, that drained the yard. So we're just connecting up to those. We've had consent to do it. So the stormwater goes away, and we've got a crate system where you have to, when you develop new houses now, you have to have what's, you're probably all aware of this anyway, you've got to have something called a Greenfield Runoff. So effectively, whatever effectively rain runs onto that, so that as it does, you can't let the water discharge any quicker than it would as a bare site before you start building.
Yeah.
When you start introducing concrete and everything else, it runs off quicker by nature. So effectively what we have to do is hold the water up, so it can only run off at the rate it previously did before it's developed.
Yeah.
So that's all signed off, that's all agreed. And so
that culvert will be staying. You just
the culvert's staying. We're
around.
building quite a fancy sort of detail over it, which is all engineered, which we're doing actually at the moment. So,
Okay. Right.
so yeah, so go down if anybody wants to have a look.
Is the sewer pipe near there as well then?
Yeah, the sewer pipe is in the site as well. Yeah. So we're just connecting into that.
I believe that if that's just storm water there,
That's the brick built culvert's just stormwater. Yeah.
well, that runs from there across the castle house. And then-
Yeah, I think it goes the other way though. It's flowing from.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that was
Yeah.
used, what's the tunnel was
Yes,
used,
right, yeah.
the tunnel that was used to go under their railway, over to Castle House there, and then from Castle House up to the church vestry.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, so but I mean, it's a storm drain, it has, but yeah, so that's that one.
Yeah.
The second subject I just wanted to talk about, we are looking at the rest of that site. It's about 1.23 acres from memory. And we just, it's once you've opened it all up, there's quite a bit more land there than what we knew was there. And we wanted to talk to you about potentially, we've had an architect draw up a plan to put 4 more houses in there, which would be exactly the same design. We can present to you. There's four more houses really, and that would, it just, I mean, otherwise if you go down there and have a look, there's where the track goes down and then turns left into the gates to the railway yard.
Yeah.
Beyond that, pretty much, it's all that land all the way up to the bridge, the road bridge at the top will just be left as sort of barren, sort of open land really. So yeah, we just thought, well, actually, it seems as, it would be a shame to just have a bare bit of land, really. I mean, okay, I would say that as a developer, wouldn't I? But just four semis or 4 terraces, I think they are. That we are planning really. We'll come to you and present it to you, show you what's what. Be exactly the same brick, exactly the same roof tile, so it would all just be the same really.
Will Network Rail still need to access the site? 'Cause I thought that was
Yes, it will,
originally
yeah.
only-
No. Network Rail, we had to draw up a sort of tri-party agreement with them, which is like sort of getting an invitation with somebody, or I don't know, I'll be politically incorrect on here, but we couldn't get that agreement signed off. I mean, honestly, it was just, I've never known anything like it, trying to get that dealt with, but so it's nearly as bad as getting the Carrington Arms open, isn't it? But yeah, so, but we'll come on to that one. But we're planning to get that sort of all road in as soon as we can, but obviously we've had lorries coming out of it today.
Yeah.
With pulling muck out of the site, so I apologise to the village if it's causing any disruption, but we will get on with it as quickly as we can, really. All the houses, as you probably some of you remember, but all of the houses were designed. So we did a environmental health study or whatever it was, where they had to be all the living rooms and bedrooms, I think from memory, all front towards the bungalows, and then the back of the houses are kitchens, bathrooms, utilities,
to protect
downstairs loos, that sort of thing. And then they're all suitably insulated and designed. So we had some environmental health assessment done on them. And we'll do that again with the other application and apply the same theory to that. So
all right, well, we'll look forward to
okay. So, and then we fenced off all the areas for all the bungalows because we own the land that the bungalows sit on. So we own their gardens effectively, and we've let those to the council on a nominal rent, and don't have any intention of taking them back. With some lovely gardens that people have made in there. So basically, we've entered into 6 agreements with the council to continue renting those to them. So. For a nominal rent. So
pity about the shop, Simon.
the shop.
Well, we do remember I think perhaps the last time we spoke was we were asking if we could perhaps get 2 meters of land at the back.
Yeah, we might be able to do that. No, the trouble is we didn't quite know what we got there until we opened it all up. So I was hesitant to sort of talk. What I didn't want to do is give a vital piece away. To something that so is the shop still? I think the shop is very, very short of storage capacity, and I mean I'm speaking really on behalf of the shop association rather than the parish council, but it would welcome it does need at some point to put some more storage in. The architect has just produced a layout for us. And as you can imagine, it's quite a steep contoured bank. So I don't know the level of the top of the bank to how, if you brought yourself 2 meters out, whether you'd be actually stepping off the cliff or not. So that was one of my concerns before, because I didn't want to then end up having to donate a piece of land with a retaining wall that cost me thousands and thousands.
Correct. Well, if you could,
so that's really what my thinking was. But look, if we can design something in, I mean, what if it was a metre by a longer period? Would that? Because
when we walked in, it was the whole width of it, 2 meters.
Yeah, it's got to be a viable storage width. If you see what I mean.
I just think perhaps we could give you a longer. So we could give you the same.
We struggled to get the fence in.
Did you?
As it was. I think if we got
that's what that.
Even a metre further, the ground wasn't stable enough to get the fence in.
Was that up by the shop though, or was that down further?
So
I remember we walked it.
That's the steepest part. Where the shop.
Well, it's the steepest part. Half of that was part of the car park. When we were off the council, that was car park for the bungalow.
It could probably come out. Sorry, it could probably come out another metre if we really tried, but I don't know.
There will be surplus land at the. There's I think that if I was in the back of a shop and this was a site here, the 9 houses are here, and there's 4 houses we're planning here. And I think the shop probably is about there in relation to those 4, say. There will be surplus land down there that really we can't do any more with. There'll be a bit more, but it would be pretty impractical probably. But if you want me to come and present a plan,
well, if you could, it doesn't matter to us. We don't want him for it. If we. Well, that would be great. I mean, it is really shop association business and parish council. If you could have a look and see what could be done there, and then perhaps we could meet with you or with Charlie and just go through what would be practical. I think that's particular shop. So we need, if you're happy with that, and come back to us when you've
Yeah.
had a look and seen
I mean,
what's
what we would want to do is just make sure we tie that into our planning application to make sure we don't burn our bridges on our planning application. But you know, we can. I mean, we don't need any. We've kept the 6 bungalow gardens because the council hasn't got any money to buy them. But we, you know, from our point of view, we're quite happy to do that, and we could do that on a long-term lease for a nominal £1 a year or something. That's not a problem. You know, that would be fine. But I was reticent before because I just didn't, rather like we said with the fence, I didn't want to be providing a piece of land that was unusable really. So yeah, so
that's
Well, I think if you, now that you know the feeling of that, I mean, if you and Charlie can look at that. And if
yeah,
you
no, we
can-
can look at it. We can
If you
say
can achieve it, that would be
yeah.
great.
But if it can only be a metre because of constraint,
well, we'll talk to the others, which.
but it might be we
John
can
and
run
I-
it along the back of
Yeah.
others, so that But I think what I'd like to make sure though that anybody buying one of those houses didn't look onto a load of cardboard boxes and because I don't think that would be fair
it'd
on
an
them.
internal storage area. It wouldn't be.
You want to build something on the back of it, so we've got somewhere proper shelved out that's insulated.
Right. Okay. So they're not going to look at a load of Walker's
No,
Crisp
no,
boxes.
The tenants of the houses look like what you've got now, which is the wooden fence.
Yeah.
That's
It would
what
be
they
no
see.
higher than that.
There's no crisp boxes or
No,
toilets or anything like that playing.
No, I mean, and in fact, if I remember correctly, the back of the shop is actually a block finish rather than a stone finish.
Yeah, I
And that was
can't picture it actually. I've walked up there.
The saintly Bert tap actually always envisaged that we might build out the back.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I mean, we contributed originally to the shop association. I remember.
You did
contribute-
make
Yeah, we did.
Well, look,
Onto the-
let's move on.
Okay, yeah, no, it's fine. So no, we'll keep the
If you come
dialogue.
back through,
We
John.
can keep the dialogue open on that. Yeah,
Lovely.
and we will continue that. Yeah. Okay. The next one was we bought the bungalow in is that South Street?
South
Street, yeah, South Street. And our intention, being completely open with you, would be to try and put a plot in the back of access off North Street. We've had sort of visibility display tests done. They seem okay from a highways point of view.
In the pub.
Coming through the pub,
The back.
the hole, the famous hole in the wall.
So you wouldn't redevelop the buffer, or would that be an addition?
Wouldn't redevelop.
The buffer is the building, which is,
Yeah, we've got planning permission which
You've
we
got planning
implemented
permission
for a house. Yeah,
so you'd still do that.
we still do that.
Still
Yeah,
conscious.
still do
So
that.
that's
But just
three houses, including the bathroom.
no. So the bathrooms, the barn, as I call it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's that.
Yeah.
So that would be one house.
Yeah.
And then coming through, if you're standing in North Street, the barn is there.
Yeah.
You'll be coming through there into the back garden of the bungalow. So making it number 2 house. Yeah. And then obviously the pub itself.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
again, when you've got some.
Save the best till last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, that's really, I mean, again, we'll come and show you some drawings and things and explain to you what our thoughts are, and you obviously we welcome any input.
And the biggest.
Yeah, I mentioned it to John actually when I spoke to you.
So that's the 2 houses then, is it just 2 going in there?
No, just one going in there. Oh, sorry, for a barn
Yeah,
and
barn and
also
house.
a bungalow, yeah.
Yeah,
It
okay.
would be a chalet bungalow, really. So it would be a low level sort of chalet bungalow. Yeah. But many years ago, we built 2 houses at the back.
That's right.
Yeah.
So how would that impact the people on South Street who have the red brick houses, which back at the moment onto the pub, would that their privacy?
The red brick houses, so the bungalow that we own is here.
Yeah,
And then
so
there's a, I think a pair of houses on
That's-
there.
that's
Yeah.
one.
That's it.
Well, the pair of semis, then the bungalow, then another little bungalow, then
Yeah.
up to the 2 houses.
And then an entrance up to the 2 houses, yeah. So they would be built from memory, and I'm not saying I'm absolutely right on that. They'd be built on the same sort of line as the 2 houses that we built many years ago. And we'd obviously build them to the same criteria that you in terms of design standards, so we wouldn't have overlooking, I mean, look, they'd be more overlooked than they currently are because by nature of putting something there, but they would be to comply with standards really,
And
and a chalet bungalow, we'd probably try and build it in stone,
I think we would ask for it.
Yeah, no, and we do try and do some,
Yeah.
some,
and the elephant in the room of the pub.
Yeah, no, I'm coming on to that one. I was going to save it for that one. Yeah. So, any other questions on any of those?
On the bungalow in South Street, which side of it is the access road going to be?
Knock it down.
Knock it down.
No, keep the bungalow.
Right.
Keep the existing bungalow. Come off North Street.
I meant Carrington Close back garden, where the whole
We're holding the
into the
just
back
turn
garden,
left
into the
there.
back garden of the bungalow.
I've got to work out whether how the parking and turning slightly works for that barn. So we've just got an architect on that at the moment. So, so the bungalow would stay as it is. We take the garden off it and then sell the bungalow. Yeah, that would be that.
That's the existing one, Simon, is it? Or
That's the existing bungalow there. So basically from the street scene, nothing changes.
oh, right.
Yeah, nothing changes from South Street at all. The back of North Street, it would just be an access in, and then obviously there'll be a chalet bungalow. Whereas actually at the back of the road, you've got 2-story houses which we built, but we've had some sketch ups, but I don't really want to show you those because I don't think, let's come up with a proper proposal really.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Right, the elephant in the room, the Carrington Arms, I mean, from my point of view, I bought the Carrington Arms 2007, I think.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
You all look a thirsty bunch, don't you? Really?
Yes, we are.
I've saved you from yourselves. What I think I'm minded to do is to sell it. And I don't know whether the village would want to buy it. We've got. I mean, basically, I mean, from my point of view, look, I bought it. My wife was going to run it as a fish restaurant. She's a very good cook. And when it came to it, she didn't really want to do it in the end. And I didn't want to push it. And so, from my point of view, I have no experience in running a pub. I apologise to you all if you have been devoid of a pub for many years, but at the end of the day, it was bought as an investment, and it was just, pubs don't make money. The recession came, Brexit came, everything's come, and actually, I have no desire to run it as a pub. Being completely frank with you, I don't want to turn it into houses or flats or anything else. I'm not trying to do that. We got planning permission for a 76-seater restaurant in the courtyard. We implemented that, and
will that remain viable with the entranceway?
yes, it will. Yeah, because it's separately accessed anyway. Yeah.
The problem is no outside space now, though, is that? Because it's going to have.
Sorry,
There'll be no outside space.
Never was going to be any outside space.
Never do. Only either you go for 2 years perhaps.
Yeah, there was never any. The consent we got, there was no outside space. It was basically we got a consent to cover over the courtyard and make a 76-seater restaurant.
Because it is rather falling to rack and ruin.
Yeah, I mean, I've had an engineer
Dangerous
look at it on a regular basis, and we've got, there's nothing actually falling down. It's not structurally unsound. It might be tatty. I repainted it to try and make it look a bit more respectable.
I'd say it's the sort of bowed wall and everything like that, and then the bits that fall.
No, I take your point, but we had an engineer look at it.
Sinking of the cellar.
Yeah, and we've just to be absolutely safe, we put some props in there, just to, he said he thought it was fine. He did a report to the Heritage, I think, or whoever it was. But basically, I don't want to run it as a pub. I'd rather be frank with you and say that this is where I am with it. I can put it on the market. It can become a restaurant. It can become, but if the village wanted to buy it, I'm not going to let them buy it for nothing.
We'll give you a pound then.
Sorry?
We'll give you a pound then.
Yeah, no.
You'll give us the opportunity to it. So us as the parish council,
Yeah.
can put it to the village and see if people.
Look, I'd want market value for it. So I'm not trying to be, but I don't mind if somebody wants to come up, I would err on the cautious side of market value in inverted commas. I don't want to, you're shaking your head, have you got a problem? No? Oh, sorry, no, okay. Sorry, I thought you had something to say, but you wanted to say no, okay.
Well, look,
I can't be any more open with you. I can't be any more blunt.
So what's the time
Will you sell
scale?
it in the condition it is now, or would you?
Yes, I sell it as a condition it is now, yeah.
So what are the timescales on when you're thinking of putting it?
Well, consider it and come back to me. It's sat there for 13 years. It's
If you could come to with some sort of price for us, so we've got an idea what we do. Or the village could do.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
whatever. Turning it on its head, has the village an appetite? Because I know everybody says they want a local pub, but actually, have they got an appetite for it? Because all it's going to do is become another man's problem.
I think the problem is it's sat there for so long and it's got into such disrepair that there's so much work to do and it would cost an absolute fortune to put it back to where it is. And so personally, I'm not sure that the village would be interested.
No.
For that reason, because it's going to take one hell of a lot of money to put into that. But I could be wrong.
That said, when the
It's just too
parish survey
sat there.
97% of the public in Castlethorpe had a desire to see a pub.
Absolutely.
So that answers your
Yeah,
question.
and I respect
Is there a
that. I
desire
respect
to have
that.
a pub? There is.
I respect that. I'm not trying to make it. I'm not trying to apply for 5 flats. I'm not trying. All I can do is tell you as it is. I'm not saying, yes, I could have done a lot more with it quicker, and I apologise to you for that. But I can't. We are where we are. I'm not trying to say anything other than where we are really. And the situation as we are is there is a building there that needs something doing to it.
Yeah.
Does the village want to do something with it?
Question.
Yeah.
You mentioned planning permission for a restaurant. Is that behind the pub or part of the pub?
It's behind it. It connects.
It's in the garden, coming up to the bungalow.
Yes.
There's the public house, there's the Gigaclear.
I personally have always thought that to put a restaurant there is going to be very difficult because there's no parking.
No, and I don't necessarily disagree with you actually. There was
Perhaps we could do a deal for the 4 extra houses.
Let's not meander to. I don't know whether there would be an appetite in the village. Whether there is, as you say, whether there is actually a demand with pubs closing very regularly.
last year the pubs did very well in the end,
Yes.
but under an unfortunate situation.
But whatever, it would take a financial, or we'd have to raise an awful lot of money in order to both buy it and make it, I won't say structurally safe.
Yeah.
But, we do the work that's needed on it, recognising it's a grade 2, which means there's going to be quite a lot of restrictions on it, and to fit it out. So that there's a lot of money, and I think we would have to explore whether the village had that sort of appetite.
Yeah, and I completely respect that.
I would question what is market value, because you're selling it as
Land.
Land. It will need to be
That
cleared.
you can't do anything with.
It will need to be you've got to get change of use to start with.
Yeah, I'm not looking for change of use. I'm not looking to. I'm not looking to try and come up with a clever scheme for it, but I'm quite happy to. I can put it in the London auction and sell it, but I don't really want to do that without saying to you, right, do you want to buy it, or does the village want to do something?
I just don't understand who would buy it.
Well, there's plenty of people.
Oh, yes, there will.
Yeah.
Well,
Can we-
Definitely.
Yeah, there will. But it's a good point. I completely hear what you're saying, and it never ceases to amaze me what people buy. Really, I was mad enough to buy it. So.
Yeah, we had in the past, considered these things, but really just thought it was going to be beyond the means of the village to do it. But thank you for,
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that.
I mean, consider it, I mean, whatever, it's
And,
got 7 bedrooms with 7 en suites from memory, but,
Yeah.
in the,
We'll see.
yeah, but I mean, yeah.
Can I just ask another question? This is.
Well, yeah,
Have we got that designated as a community asset?
no, it's
No,
not
because
declared as
if
a.
it was, first option.
Well, even if it was, Leo, all that means is that Simon would be obliged to offer it to the village, which he's doing anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it-
Look,
yeah.
don't make it a ponder it, please. Look, I sound, probably very arrogant offering it like this, but give it some thought. We're not steaming away trying to sell it overnight. So look, just give it some thought, and if anybody's got any bright ideas on it, please come back to us.
Okay.
Simon, thanks for telling us that, because that, at least we know now exactly what your plans are.
Yeah,
Right.
but please may it be noted on file, I'm not offering it to you on the check. So, yeah.
You're not going to gift it
Yeah.
to us.
So, Steve, you would know, he said he's offering it to us on the cheap.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
right,
yes,
I
yeah.
think we do need to.
Is that all right? Look,
Yeah.
if you want me to come again and explain anything else, I'm very happy.
Okay, we'll do that.
So,
We'll liaise with you through John. Any other councillors have any further questions for Simon?
no, okay, very nice to see you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming along.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you,
Very nice to
Charlie.
see you. Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, before we go on to anything else, Facebook has got a technical error, which is why I couldn't get the beginning.
We're trying to.
It is.
We won't take it down.
Do you happen to know whether you?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to.
Right, if we can continue with the meeting now, please. Now, we're into the rest of the open forum. I mean, time is, that was obviously important, but rather take a lot of time. Steve, you'd like to speak, would you?
Yes, it is. Yes. I'd just like to comment on the. Steve, would you like to comment?
If you come round there, then you can be heard.
We can't hear you.
The microphone is here, you see, so.
We've got a hand dryer. This is washing his hands.
Yeah.
Regarding number 12 and the new planning application, I'd just like to make one key comment really. The inspector that approved the previous application actually approved it with conditions. And the conditions were that the windows and doors should match the existing property. They were actually sensible conditions because having white windows and doors will match the existing property and the surrounding houses. Having the new planning application, there is a danger, if it's approved, that those conditions will be removed. So I'd just like to urge the council to recommend to Milton Keynes Council that they keep the conditions in place that were put there for a sensible reason.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
I think that's very good. Thank you. Did anyone else want to speak? I see we have Leah, who come along.
Don't remember the desk. On the desk. Okay. That's a desk. Yes, I just wanted to make a point about item 7.2, which is on the agenda, which is
Carrington Close.
to an update really on the MKC planning situation on section 106 agreement, and which we are still waiting for answers on, of course, we haven't got them yet. Really, I would just suggest to councillors, and because this is going to be discussed obviously in the closed part and a decision taken in terms of the resolutions, that if the response we get from Milton Keynes Council is negative, in other words, they say that they cannot defend section 106 30%, that the council should seek independent legal advice on this. We have the experience recently via the neighbourhood plan. Well, Milton Keynes Council are saying that it's under discussion legally now, but our experience on the neighbourhood plan was that they sought legal advice, but they asked a very closed question, which only produced one result. The answer you get to any legal opinion depends on the question you ask. And frankly, I don't think we can rely on Milton Keynes Council to ask an open question to actually get the full subject covered properly legally. And this is a very important issue for the village, I would say.
Yeah, well, as you've probably seen, the wording of 7.2 is to consider the status of Carrington Close and any further action to include the commissioning of legal advice. Yeah. So that your point is on the agenda. Yeah. And I would thank you, Leo, actually, for your input at the previous meeting, where you did point out the very specific nature of the wording in the S106 agreement, which did cause us to write. As I think you're aware, so that residents are aware, I did write to the head of planning after the last meeting and got a holding reply, and I sent a chaser last week to say we had this meeting tonight and they're still waiting their legal advice, but that may be that will be discussed on the main agenda, and it's not closed. I mean, it's a part of the council meeting, but it is in the part one of the meeting.
Also, of course, there is the issue I raised about the advertisement, which is false, if to put it simply, to 31 affordable.
Well, that was also covered in my letter.
In fact, that was covered to some extent in the council's MKC's reply.
Yes.
However, their reply was about a situation where an advertisement needs planning permission. But the question the question I was asking was the fact that it's advertising law is quite strict. You have to be truthful in what you do. Yeah. The reply which planning manager sent addressed it from a planning permission point of view. And planning permission for adverts is only necessary under certain circumstances. Many have deemed permission, actually. Yeah. So it didn't answer the question at all.
No, I didn't.
Hang on, these people are saying there's a section 106 that says 30%. These people are effectively saying we've got 100% for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And indeed, that is their intent. Okay. We'll bear that. Thank you very much. Does anyone else agree?
Oh, sorry, no. Nobody wants to ask me anything, no?
No, that's fine. Right, in that case, we'll move to open the meeting itself. Apologies for absence. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just Dave Hines. Dave Hines is actually joining us via Zoom, which, because he was tested positive for COVID. Now, lawfully, only councillors who are present can count for the quorum of us. We have to have at least 3 of us here, which clearly we have got tonight, but also on voting. So I do quite frequently, or we do quite frequently, allow members of the public to speak at the agenda item, rather than the forum, and I think it's only a reasonable courtesy that we allow Dave to speak on the agenda item. We won't be voting. So, declarations of interest, any of the items, please. Approve the minutes of the meeting of the 7th of February. Are there any matters of fact any councillor would like to have corrected? In that case, can I ask for a proposer, which is Russell and seconded John, and we're all in favour, yes? Yeah. Clerk's report. So All right, so I'm gonna be finally. So. Parks report. Oh, you want to take that? Yeah. Can I ask if there's anything in the first section that any councillor would like to raise?
By the way, number 8 is not read for any reason. That was a conversion between the
Oh no, I'm afraid that actually was me.
Oh, right, okay.
And I highlighted that in red because at our last meeting, we talked about, and I think Councillor Hines suggested that we planted a tree where there is a dead cherry in the checkers. And he and I had a number of email exchanges just to make sure we were talking about the right tree. And I then went to Milton Keynes Council to say, is it okay if we now put a Queen's Jubilee tree in here? And they basically said no. They are already have plans to plant trees there. So the reason I put this in red is that we do need to think again where else we can put a tree in the village. It seems amazing to me, but we had this conversation several times before, that there are so few places where we can actually put trees. John?
Chair, I think Councillor Barker and myself saw a tree on the triangle that is distressed and it will fall down if it's not cut down, which will be a perfect place to put a tree.
Well,
Not at the moment. I wouldn't have enough room, would you, at the moment? Wouldn't do the tree you're going to plant any favours. But my other question is, the gentleman that said about the cherry tree, I spoke to, etc., and said he'd take the cherry tree down and put one of the Queen's Jubilee ones just away from it and put a plaque by it.
Oh, right.
so this is the chap at,
In the checkers, the chap that come on his push bike.
oh, this is the same chap.
Yeah, well, he told me he'd take the cherry tree out, or plant the tree first and use it as a Jubilee kitty, and then he'd take the cherry tree down.
Okay, so I think he said, I think in his email to me, he said it was going to be a thorn, whatever a thorn is.
It's symbolic.
Anyway, so you think that he's actually talking about calling it Jubilee tree?
He said he would put it in at the Jubilee fund of the trees.
Okay, in that case, I will ask him. I mean, that's even better, really, isn't it? That means that Milton Keynes Council are going to put it in, maintain it.
Yep.
And buy. I think the only thing that's left, which we could probably leave to Steve because it's a small enough sum, is that there's £100 for the Queen's Jubilee plaque that is raised by veterans.
Didn't you say that the guy was going to put a plaque in? Oh, this is specific veterans plaque.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will write to him, not his name now, but I will write back to him and
the only other place you can perhaps put one is where those up by the 2 green boxes in Castlethorpe Parish. There's 2 of them, more than one already dead, right down the field.
Yeah.
And the other one's about Addie's life anyhow.
And you have to get an architect.
you have to get
Archaeologists.
Heritage England.
Yeah.
No, because you're taking it through out and put it in the same place.
Yeah, well, they won't have that.
They won't have that. You know, down in the fish ponds.
Yeah.
Where it's absolutely crystal clear where the edge of the area, where the edge of the Scheduled Ancient Monument is, yeah, because you can see it tracked and it's marked on the map. They would not agree that replacing the tree that came down was outside the area, and so Milton Keynes Council have planted it out of line, slightly back.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just unbelievable as an organisation.
I've tried a few times.
Yeah. And we tried to get permission in the top of Castle Field by the sports ground, where there are already trees.
Yeah.
Yes. But we've dug them out of Brilliant End Road and took them up to Castle Field.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Chair, where Ian's talking about, if it were possible, that's a really good spot to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's possible.
Yeah. But,
Which I think would be.
I mean, the amount of effort that's involved in,
Oh,
in
yeah.
dealing with them, and the lady who works in our area only works 2 days a week or 3 days a week or something. The area that she's got is most of southeast England. I mean, it's just quite ridiculous. Right. So anyway, thanks to Ian. That's a really good point. We'll follow up on that. Just to say on 9, the speed indicator device, Dave put it up last week. I went up and downloaded it today, so it's lasted 8 days. So we probably will now look to getting the SID transferred to us if Milton Keynes Council don't want to maintain it. It's lasted 8 days, which is what it used to do when it was working properly. So obviously it was the battery that's the problem. Anything else? How are your 2 youngsters getting on with the Duke of Edinburgh with you, Steve?
Well, they've really only just started, so I've given them, we're gradually getting boxes out from the garage, and we've got the planning permissions, planning applications and planning permissions and rejections, paperwork, back copies, which they're trying to find a solution to get them scanned, stored in electric format and indexed, and that's where we sit at the moment. I might actually refer them to you for some tips on how to use Google Magic Black Arts.
Okay, all right, we'll do that in due course. Or Russell, I'm sure, between us. Well, Kay, actually, Kay is
Kay's what?
the IT lady, are you not?
Sort of, yes.
So anyway, between us, I'm sure we can do something. That's great. Do we need to discuss item 17?
I can give you an update. I had actually, as you'll probably know, one of the big trees, oaks. I don't know, what are they?
They're not oaks up there.
What are they? Anyway, one came down and cast out the back garden.
Oh, yes, that's
It's a blooming great big tree. I phoned Luke Stacey to see what his thoughts were, and unfortunately Luke's not been very well, so I thought that it was actually part of Luke. But Chris, I think it's his foreman up there, had a word with Michael Weaver, asked him to go and have a look, but said it is the Parish Council's responsibility, which, to be fair, it's on our land, it's our tree, that's probably not wrong. So Michael's going to give me an indication of what it's going to cost. I've left a message with our insurers to see whether we're actually covered for it on insurance. There'll be a £250 excess, but I think we're talking, the tree actually needs to be cut up and removed. It can't be dragged off. So it's going to be quite expensive. If it's over £2,000, even if it's insurance, I think we still have to go out to 3 quotes. So it's not on the agenda because we're not in a position to put it on the agenda. But I said to Phil, Tracy has got it in her back garden. It's obviously not ideal. So we don't really want to drag it on another month if we have. So we might need an extraordinary meeting to.
I mean, Ian, do you have any experience of the sort of costs that are involved in doing this?
How long's it been a stream and who you know and who you don't know? That's the problem, and that's all we've got.
Okay, all right. All right, so it's fair enough. I just thought.
The only other person you can ask is Jordan Webster.
Yeah.
He does a lot of landscaping and throwing up lots of work.
And when it comes back, if it's insurance, then, well, I mean, it's I suppose we ought to. I mean, the insurance company might take responsibility for getting it done to somebody who don't.
Yeah.
So we just have to see what comes back from insurance, but Michael Lever's going to give me an indicative cost.
Okay.
While we're talking about cut trees, I mean, the cut tree that fell down in the fish ponds area and beyond is still lying there. The bits they cut the main trunk and it's still lying there at the moment.
Yes, I mean, that was Serco, presumably.
Yeah, Serco came to it.
So, I mean, it might, they might be another person to get a quote from if we had to go for 3 quotes, but I think we just wanted everyone to be updated on it.
Yeah.
And I think rather than trying to get into a discussion.
I'm pretty happy.
that's.
I think the main thing is to get the tree out off the wall of Castle
Yes.
House, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then it can, lie there.
Well, I don't think it's that easy. I think you're going to have to do it all. the time.
Yeah.
Okay. You notice that Steve has been trying to get hold of Stonewall to discuss how social housing will be allocated and is waiting to call that. I did, because of various residents who were, or hopeful residents who were people with connections to the village, I have put in your packs the S106 agreement for Thrupp Close, where there are a number of houses where people are meant to have a close connection to the village. It's under item 10.1 if you want to look at that outside of the meeting.
But that's
That's right.
we should try and actually negotiate.
No,
something
I mean, when I spoke to Andrew, he said that was done in the days when you could have these very restricted S106 agreements. You would never ever get that these days. So, and frankly, the S106 agreement for Carrington Close is done now anyway.
Yeah.
So, right. Let's move on then. Now, we did offer ward councillors, rather than trying to remember you at the end of the week, whether you'd like to give a report on any matters you'd like to bring to our attention properly at this stage of the meeting. Is there anything, if there is, would you like to come around so that we can be seen and...
No, not particularly for me. Do you not want to pitch the new candidate?
You can't do
No, you can't do that. The answer is yes. We would not.
Sorry, I don't know what. Sorry.
Right, comment there, isn't it?
Moving on.
Right, still that checking weaknesses. I put it now. I could get a.
No authority.
Yeah. Let's move on then to 5.1, which is the revised planning application for 12 Shepperton. I mean, we've seen a number of them from here, and remember that this was, a previous application was approved on appeal by the planning inspector. I mean, we have had letters from the residents on either side here, and we just heard Steve Patrick speak. And basically, the planning inspector did put two conditions in. Well, one was a recommendation, and the other was a condition. The materials to be used in the construction of the external surfaces of development hereby permitted shall match those in the use in the existing building. And then he wrote in his commentary, in the interest of the character and appearance of the area, a condition is also necessary requiring the external materials of the proposed extensions, including the windows and the doors, to match the existing dwelling house. So we have spent a lot of time talking about this in the past, and indeed taking it to DCP. I personally would commend that we do not offer an objection, but that we ask for those two conditions to be imposed, and indeed would, if necessary, speak at DCP if the case officer was not minded. And this ought to be a slam dunk. I mean, the planning inspector has said this is what ought to happen, and all we're doing is reinforcing it. And to be honest, looking at the drawings, it's not obvious to me that's not their intention anyway. So that's fine. George.
Chair, can I just emphasise something that came up? Because if you are wanting to say that you would like to speak on DCP, you do need to make sure you put in the letter, if they're not going to include those conditions in the delegated commission, then you want to call it in.
Yes.
Because whilst perhaps some people might assume that's the case, if it's not specifically said, it's not.
Yeah, no, you will, yes, thank you very much for that, George. And actually, I think Steve does use exactly the wording that you said when he writes. Yeah.
Not exactly. Some parish councils fall foul of assuming that would be done, and So he says, well, you didn't say that.
Right.
I think in the letter, we should mention that these two conditions would mean that it would be within what's prescribed in the neighbourhood plan as well.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
So say that, yes.
Okay, can we do more than ask and just demand that they're put in?
Well, we ask, yeah, well,
Okay.
we're
Ask first, aren't we?
consultees, so we have to ask. Right, is everyone happy with that? Yeah. Right, let's move on now. We'll take section 6, which are previous planning applications as a batch. And can I ask if councillors wish to raise any questions on these? I mean, they're all effectively planning applications that are in progress. Any questions? A smile from Councillor Sawbridge.
I'm always smiling, I'm a cheery person.
Right.
So has this been written off about the foul water and the, or the surface water drainage there? They've put a scheme in for it now, have they?
They have put in schemes, but it's registered and there are no updates. Yeah.
Right.
So it's not approved yet.
You seem to be dragging their feet rather. On the whole thing.
Ian, you're off your camera.
That's right. I'll put back the screen.
Go on, Darren, can you move it round?
No,
so that we
no,
can see
no.
this,
People want to
Right.
see you.
In that case,
No.
we'll now move to section 7, resolutions. First resolution is to agree to a public excluded part 2 of the meeting, where we're just going to talk about the matters that I mentioned and I introduced, which is there are 2 applications for village handyman, where they're basically personal applications, so we need to consider that in private. And then we have a quote for the deed of transfer of the sports ground from the Allotments Association to the Parish Council, which will give us a little bit more freedom, with things that might need to be done at the sports ground. And that will be circulated to their shareholders and hopefully will be accepted. But I think suggest we circulate it as a draft in the first place. Anyway, this is for a part 2 to discuss those matters. I'll propose it, John seconding it, and everyone agree.
We're going to go back to 6.5, please.
Oh, right.
No?
Okay.
Did you find anything about the way from bridge?
Chasing work again.
What was in there?
That's far. Ian asked about 6.5, so
Yeah.
I've chased my colleagues at work again to see if they've got any answers back. So I will, as soon as I got it, I'll send it around via email.
Well, when Stephen and I met them, they were coming from Northampton, didn't they? Bridge Road.
Yeah. There was
From
no,
Northampton. No,
but he wasn't looking that particular.
So I've got the bridge and the Carrington Close in discussion with people.
Right, thank you.
Okay. 7.2 then. This is the status of Carrington Close and any further action to consider the commissioning of legal advice. Now, there is only, I mean, I appreciate there are issues such as the surface water drainage and so on, but they will get worked through.
Yeah.
I think those are effectively in hand. The big issue, as we've all discussed, is the proportion of affordable housing, and that's what Leo spoke in the open forum about, and the fact, as you know, that the Milton Keynes planning policies say that affordable housing should be between 30 and 50% of a development, a large development, in order to make sure that social housing is integrated with open market housing. We have got in our own neighbourhood plan that there should be open market housing without specifying exactly how many. There's a supplementary planning document from Milton Keynes Council, which says that affordable housing should be pepper potted in groups of no more than 12 houses. And the S106, which actually really supersedes all of those, because those other matters simply inform the planning decision. And the planning decision, which is partly encapsulated in the S106 agreement, actually says 30% and no variation without written agreement from MKC, as Leo pointed out to us at the last meeting. As we already said, I wrote to John Palmer, the head of planning, after our last meeting. I got a response back saying that he was needed to take legal advice as to whether they could actually enforce it. I chased again last week, and he said they still hadn't heard it and they wouldn't be able to respond by this meeting. Now, one option that we have got is that we could try to seek our own legal advice as to whether this condition is enforceable. BALC, which is, as you know, the county association to which we pay an annual fee, has negotiated an agreement with a firm of solicitors who are parish council specialists. In fact, I don't know how many of you enjoy reading Arnold Palmer to get you off to sleep. The Bible of parish councils, the yellow book. Okay, clearly not. Anyway, they've taken over the authorship of it since his demise. So they really are specialists, and say, can't I? They are the company that we're actually looking to do the deed transfer with in part 2. Now, they, as part of the deal with BALC, they will give 15 minutes of free consultancy. And I can't see any harm in us actually going forward on this. Now, can I just ask Steve, how much further can we go? What I'm very concerned about is, you know, another month goes by each time we discuss this. Under this, I mean, can we say that if we get a quote that is within the £2,000 limit that we have for competitive quotes, you could go with them? I mean, we have got other firms of solicitors, not least the ones who advised the Residents Association on the Gobbers Field.
Well, you can do, but I would question that as a value call. I would like to see that is a reasonable price.
Yeah,
I don't like to take anything as a one-off cost. And there's once given the advice that you don't go into a shop to buy a washing machine without knowing what a washing machine costs.
right.
So I would like, although we would be permitted to buy standard orders to engage them under £2,000, but I would rather spec it out and get another quote as well. Not necessarily 2, but 1 more.
Okay.
Can we say, can we just, this is so important now, that Stonewater have just done exactly what they want. Milton Keynes Council seem to be just literally burying their head in the sand and not taking a blind bit of notice of this. And I know that Phil has chased and chased and chased. And every time he just comes up against a brick wall, well, we don't know yet, or we'll look into it. Absolutely nothing is happening. So yes, get quotes, but they have to be fast because we have to do something now. I really do think, I would really like to see Milton Keynes Council, a representative, have a meeting with them to help us understand where they're coming from on this and why they are letting this go on.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, we did have a meeting with them, you know, and they told us that they could not enforce this. And it was only when I brought that back to the village and we had, and it was specifically Leo then raised and said, well, hang on, you know, a plain English reading of the S106 agreement means they should be able to enforce it. We went back to them. So we have had a meeting. I don't think a meeting is going to help. I think a solicitor's letter might help.
But I would say that John Palmer has said he will get back next week, isn't it?
I mean, they're
Yeah, so
they're
you
literally
can-
putting the roofs on them now. They'll be selling them soon or not selling them, sorry. They will be giving them to people.
That'll be marketed about, won't it?
Or, yeah, they'll literally
Well,
rent them out all 32 of them.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sorry, I was going to.
Go, John.
Well, I was going to say, I actually agree with Kay on this because I think they need to feel what the village is feeling about this issue at the moment, and they're not. And you've done your best, but I think if we say, right, we want to meet here in an extraordinary meeting, and we want this legislation that you are quoting examined, because that's when we need to put the solicitors in, if we're not happy.
Yeah, well, look, can I make the suggestion then that immediately we ask Steve to talk to Welles Headley, who are the BALC people, and who will give this free consultation time, and just to ask them very briefly whether they think that this kind of S106 agreement is binding or whether it can be overturned. I mean, can I just warn councillors? The easy way for Milton Keynes to get out of this is simply to hold a DCC meeting and to say we are now going to approve 100% affordable. Now, we will go along there and we will say, hang on a minute, your planning policies say this, and your SPD says that, the neighbourhood plan says the other. But and the S106 contract, clearly said that, and that's the basis on which we actually brought the land forward in the first place, let's be clear. But at the end of the day, am I going to be political if I say the Progressive Alliance could turn around and just say, we want these affordable housing, we're going to do it, and blow you rurals? I mean, I've got at least 2 other examples where their blow you rurals have come up in the last week, one of which you were at, John.
I just think it's so wrong for the village, and that people in the village will not be able to downsize, that the younger people won't be able to stay there.
All of that, I know.
We can give them all that. 2 things here really. What have the 3 sites in Hounslow, how much have they been social? Have they had 30%?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Stonewater.
Certainly not 100%.
I mean, let's be clear.
The size of the houses.
There's 400 houses or something in Hounslow. 450, I think it is, yeah. And a third of those will be social housing. I mean, that's a lot of housing, But look,
The other thing is, does George has he been bought on it? Can he take it through a bit of somebody?
well, I think Chris was at our meeting, actually, I mean, and George would have been, got caught, so the ward councillors are involved. What I'm suggesting is that, first of all, that Steve gets some advice. And if the advice is you don't stand a chance, it's not worth your while doing it, then probably we're just going to have to bite our lower lips and yeah. But if he gets advice that says this S106 agreement is enforceable and should be, then I think under the terms of this and in a way which makes Steve comfortable by getting 2 votes, we should say we can go ahead with an expenditure of up to £2,000 to progress this, so that we don't have to wait for our next meeting before taking the next step. You're happy with that?
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
Councillors happy with that?
And it's done as soon as, I mean, obviously I'm in the business too, but as soon as possible.
Oh, it's a priority.
Yeah.
I have to say.
I mean,
sorry.
as Steve said, we are hopeful that we might get a response from John Palmer during the course this week, but then we actually have been hopeful we'll get a response from him for the last month.
Yeah,
So,
it's so slow.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, really, Chip, this is quite an important issue, not only for us, but for other rules as well, because if you can agree land, agree a section 106 agreement, and then tear it up if it doesn't suit the developer, that's got to be wrong.
yeah, and the same applies to Milton Keynes Council.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
they encourage parishes to bring land forward
Yeah.
on one basis, And then they simply raise two fingers to them afterwards and say, well, we don't care what you agree. You've brought the land forward now. We're going to do whatever we want with it.
Yes.
Then, you know, I will make sure that every parish in Milton Keynes knows that that is the way that the principal authorities behave.
And it does make rather a mockery of the village plan, the neighbourhood, the plan, because it's just like you spend so long and put so much work into it, and then it's just like, well, that doesn't matter, does it? Let's just set it aside and, you know.
Okay.
So
have you got the resolution? Oh, George, before I move to.
I haven't to say, can I come and?
Yeah, please.
Good. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I absolutely support you on what you want. I mean, I am a member of DCC, so I have to look at both sides of the argument here, and I cannot predetermine myself unless I excuse myself from DCC afterwards. So the advice I can give you is only general. But if you're going to ask, you get some free advice and then some that you might pay for. There are two questions you need to ask. The first one is, do you have a case for enforcing the Section 106 agreement? And that is, I know there's some new case law, which is what John Palmer is looking at the moment. And it's basically, I think the answer is no one knows. And they think that this case law is going to guide it. But the second question you then have to ask is, say the case law and everything comes down on your side. And yes, you're absolutely right. It can be enforced. The second question you then need to find out is, what can Milton Keynes Council actually do about it? And the problem you have is that breaking or not complying with planning permission, building a house or more houses without planning permission, is not actually a criminal offence. And so it has to go through an enforcement process. And the enforcement process, if it gets appealed, which it almost definitely would then go to an inspector or to a tribunal or whatever. And they would have to then make a judgment on, is the enforcement proportional and reasonable? And the enforcement you are going to be asking the court or the inspector to, and I'm not quite sure who would be the final arbiter, but the enforcement you would be asking them is to tell the owners of some properties that they cannot sell them cheaply. And I suspect that a court or a judge or indeed an inspector would actually say that's not really a reasonable thing to say to people, you can't give away your property if you want to. And so therefore, as I say, the thing you want to find out in your 15 minutes that you're not paying for is, even if you're absolutely right and you win, is it something that is going to be legally enforceable? Because if it isn't going to be legally enforceable, if you do win, then there's no point spending £2,000 finding out you can't win. You can win if you can't enforce it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to advise you to ask both of those questions, and the second one first.
Yeah. Thank you, George. And that's very, very good advice. And I think I can see Steve is scribbling it. I mean, not to be argumentative. I mean, I have looked at this. You know, what would it be if it was the other way around? In other words, if someone was obliged to provide 30% affordable housing, and the developer just raised two fingers and said, well, I'm selling more on the open market, what are you going to do about it? Now, I bet you that would be enforceable in some way. So I don't quite understand why the obverse of it isn't. But anyway, you'll see, we need legal advice, and thank you very much.
The other thing I'll just say in response to it, I'm not entirely sure that they can bring this to DCP or DCC for DCC to make a decision until we actually get to an enforcement decision. I don't think they can just say to DCC, let's reorganise this.
No, what the S106 says is that it is 30%, and this may only be varied in writing by MKC after a decision is made at Development Control Committee.
All right, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, could I just ask? Okay, I can ask those questions, but it will be ask, answer, okay then. George, do your commitments to DCC prevent you from taking part in say, a Zoom call for 15 minutes?
I wouldn't,
or is that not?
I can take advice, but if the advice is that if we're predetermined, then,
Yeah,
but I could, I'll also take advice on whether or not I can excuse myself.
yeah. Well, I'd rather you didn't excuse yourself. I think, given Mr. Mbimbo's record on a number of other matters that we've had, I'm pretty certain he will advise that you can't take part. But perhaps Councillor Ward would join us. Yeah.
So if
Would you be allowed to brief
Yes.
Well, Chris is careful of being involved.
Can I ask another question, Chair, if I may?
Yeah.
And it's this one, because I think from the start of this, Stonewater have actually not played the game at all. They've gone in there, dug up the heritage bit, the archaeological bit, they've put houses on when they shouldn't have done, and we're still going through the same treadmill. Is there any way we can censor them as a company and just say to councils, look, you know, if you agree to deal with them, they don't honour it, and you're over a barrel? Because I don't think they should be allowed to get away with this.
Well, I mean, I would agree with you, but I mean, you've got to be careful of the laws of libel on this.
That's why I'm asking it.
I think you want to be very careful.
It's not libelous, though,
And,
is it?
He said
It's
it.
fact.
Yeah. And I would say that comments made in parish council meetings are not privileged in any way. So you can't say bad things about people.
Can I therefore put on the record that was a personal view?
Yes, it definitely was personal.
One shared personally with me as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and may
are
may I say from personal experience, that libel is the only thing that you're guilty until you prove yourselves innocent of.
Do we actually need a vote, or everyone's agreeable on that?
Oh, well, we should have the vote.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Agree with that. Thank you. Right, moving on to a lighter topic then. A commemorative gift for the Queen's Jubilee. Russell, would you like to take us through?
Yes, we had a look at some things. We don't know actually how many we need, whether it's for every house in the village or every child in the village, but it basically comes down to commemorative mugs, teddy bears, and special commemorative medals and badges.
Can I make a suggestion? That somehow we do some sort of order form for them. So basically, not like even are you interested, but do you definitely want one of these? Because if they do, then we know how much money we have to spend. Because what we buy, we have a budget. So I don't know how much it is, but we have a budget onto this. So no, we haven't got a budget for this.
We haven't agreed a budget for it. We've just
Okay.
agreed that
This will be S137.
it will be.
I thought this.
Well, we have a fixed sum,
Yes,
S137, but
But
we
we
haven't agreed a budget for the purchase of commemorative.
Okay. Because I mean, obviously, if there's thousands of them, they get a coin. If
No,
there's,
there aren't. I mean,
that's what I mean. So it would be nice to know a ballpark figure of like how many.
well, I did write, I think to you, Kay, about the number of children. I mean, I personally think there are a couple of options here. One is that we could give one to every household in the village. And these, for example, mugs, they're about £4 each. Yeah. Okay, so that would be £2,000. Yeah. The other is that we give one to every child in the village. Now, when we did something similar 10 years ago, Geraldine Sweetland organised it. I think I've got the record as the number of children that came, but it wasn't that many. I think it was about 150 or something like that. So it was a smaller number. So we could, we could go that way and say that that's what we want. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, that's for councillors to decide whether you want it per household or whether you want it for the children, really.
And I think,
Sure. Or a bit of both if you wanted. If a household's got multiple children, they could actually have a.
I think if it's one per household and you've got two or three children.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it should be for the children.
Children.
yeah, and I think if there's like, I think depends on the age of the children as well, because, you
Well, they
know,
had up to 16 before.
yeah, and I just think like a 4-year-old's not really interested in a mug, for instance, that's not very exciting.
No, one of the things is metal water bottle.
Even that,
No.
and that's sort of, it's not something that's going to last for years and years and years, it's not going to sit somewhere where people.
Well, hang on, can I tell you that on my mantelpiece,
You've got your mug.
I have got every sort of royal mug going back to the Queen's
A
coronation.
collector.
And so have I, so it's, you're 100%.
Children do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to aim at the children, wouldn't it be nice to have something more child friendly? That's all. That's all I'm thinking. And I just think maybe we should ask the village about what they would like.
No,
That was-
actually,
Don't get too complicated.
Okay.
The mums
I'm
will
going to
say,
give them options.
when you're old enough to appreciate, darling, you can have that.
yeah.
Well, maybe
Okay.
we should give it to every child and then have options that they can either have a teddy bear
Yeah.
or a mug or a water
Well,
bottle.
I mean,
or a
the
battery.
problem
Like an
is
order form.
that the mugs, and I will confess, looking at the options that Steve sent round from everybody, I personally liked the first mug that was put up, the one that had got it had got the picture of the Queen at a coronation on one side and the picture of the Queen now on the other side. I thought it was a lovely mug, but they are in packs of 36. You have to order them in 36 at a time. So at least I think that's what it is.
What we did last time, when any extras left over, we were able to buy, which I bought.
That's right, we did, that's right.
So,
That's correct, yeah.
I just think it'd be nice to have something more child friendly, but that's a personal opinion, so I just go with the majority.
yeah.
The teddy bears look nice, but
Yeah.
they're quite small.
But I mean, a little teddy like that, it's just, it's something that people will keep for years, like, I've got the time. I'm very old, and I've still got my teddy from when I was young, so. And I passed it on.
As they
you
say,
know.
sexism isn't dead, isn't it? I've got a teddy bear and I've got my mug.
There is a meeting of the village, the committee that's organising the Jubilee celebrations on Wednesday. It's a Zoom meeting.
It'd be nice to get opinions,
So
that's all I'm just thinking.
I think if anybody who's watching this would like to join in that meeting, it's at 8 o'clock on Wednesday. I'll post it on Facebook and how to log into it. And if anybody else wants to log into it as well, because the more people who have their say, the better it's going to be.
We could always put like a forms quiz or something like that on Facebook, and you know the email that you send around.
I mean, we did have this discussion last time, and we did to say that we wanted to try and bring this to a head of this meeting to agree the expenditure, to make a resolution on the expenditure. Because apart from anything else, we need to get
to order it
and make sure it's in time. It's not that far in the future now. So, and particularly if it's children, I think the way in which we work out how many children there are is that we basically ask people to, you know, send their request through the child's name and their address, so that we're not supplying Hanslope and Havisham and Cosgrove with various.
What about giving them the options of what they want? Unlike a teddy bear, a badge, or water bottle.
Oh, no, that's too much. That is just honestly.
This
is going to fall.
I'd like to clarify this time, I really haven't got time to do any coordination and stuff like that. So if something like that needs to.
I think we've got to go for the mugs.
Yes.
Okay.
Mugs.
Yeah, I'm prepared to give vote for the mugs. Sorry, Kate.
Mugs.
Try with I'll go with the majority.
Is that a majority?
Yeah, it is.
The majority.
You talk about you come up with a teddy bear here.
George,
George was speaker.
When you finish voting on that, Chair, I'd just like to point out, I don't know whether you've heard yet, but at last month's budget, Conservative amendment to put £20,000 forward for parish councils and other community organisations to apply for a grant for this sort of thing. Has I don't think they've actually sorted out how it's going to be divided and what the application is yet, but you should keep an eye out for that because it will be happening imminently and before your next meeting.
Where is it? A teddy bear and a badge.
One of them was
It's £20,000 from local King's Council that somehow parishes and local organisations will be able to apply for a grant for exactly the sort of thing we're discussing.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Yes, we will do that.
Thanks, Jude.
Well,
Unless
okay,
it's
look.
any mantelpiece.
Sorry, can we just, what would be really good on Wednesday is if we could find someone who would take over the administration.
I don't.
I do agree, you know.
I don't think it's going to be too arduous if we've now decided on one product. So we only need to, you know,
And just
register
just get me an invoice.
and order a few.
Well, I think we need you to order it.
I'll order it, yeah.
And we'll go with that. And there were 2 mugs on the list. I thought the first one looked a lot nicer, the one with the
I
two.
quite like the ones with the purple logo on it. One of them you could have your own thing on the back.
Well, I put links down
It's
to
it's not
people.
Chesterfield, it's one of the other ones.
To look.
Your original one, the one's £8.
Yeah, these ones are £3.15.
It's
Are they the
£3.49. Well,
plastic
there's
ones?
one at £3.08.
I don't know.
The ones that I originally.
One of the ones
said-
I looked at,
The
it
ones,
was plastic.
yeah, the one I'm proposing is running it, the second one on the list.
So that's £3.49 rather than
£3.49.
£3.08.
We okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Done, we'll try and, we're both on the call, and indeed anyone else.
And was that a majority or you?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
No,
sorry, all in
that's fine,
favour.
I'll go with
raise
the
hands,
majority.
Yeah, unanimous?
Yeah, that's great. Good. Dave, this is your moment. It's the arrangements
He's
for,
watching the bloody football.
no, he's
Sleep.
arrangements for lighting the beacon, and any other corresponding arrangements. I mean, I think, Dave, there is a document out which says when the beacons are going to be lit across the country, because I think Handslope have published their details. You're okay with the usual tripod, are you?
Just let me know the time, the date, and myself and Lawrence will put something together. It won't be a problem. Basically, Lawrence will put it together and I'll probably light it.
Okay.
It'll be the same contraption we had last time. So it'll be a freestanding beacon. We're not going to be going into the ground or anything like that. So, but yeah, it won't be a problem.
Okay.
Need any money?
Do you need any money for it?
Well, if you want to give me some money, that's fine. No, Lawrence, no, don't need any money.
No, I think it's just kindling or something, isn't it? Whatever you do.
There is a
tree over here.
There's a tree there.
There is a specific day for lighting beacons at 7:45.
That's right.
Yeah, there will be, yeah.
Yeah, there is. So that's all in hand. Thank you very much then, Dave, for doing that. That's great. If I could ask you to go back on mute, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Got a big hanky. Right, consider actions required on the village hall drains, Councillor Forger.
Yeah. If you've looked at the documents in the Google Drive document, you'll see there's a great big blockage there of wet wipes and baby things, and nobody ever admits to it. Every blockage is caused by that. And also, we commissioned a video inspection of the drain going down to the main sewer in North Street, and there's cracks in the pipes and tree roots and things as well. So we do need to do something fairly urgently about it.
Who's responsible for the pipe? Is it
We
the
are.
one in there?
What, from the village hall manhole there across the road?
No, we're responsible up to the wet joints of sewer, and then Anglia water.
Ian, you and I did discuss this.
Yeah.
And once it goes onto the public highway, of course, it is Anglian Water's responsibility. But the manhole, the blockage is between the manhole that's just out there
Yeah.
and the one that's in the village hall parking space, which is actually ours. So it is our problem. I know you and I did discuss this at some length, but and there was a glimmer of hope that we might be able to get Anglia Water to pay for it, but I think unfortunately it is ours. So really, Russell, can I just check? Have we already approved the laying of the pipe?
Yes,
we have.
Down there? So that's done.
That's approved.
So all we've got, we've commissioned and have got to pay for the survey, which was £200.
Yeah, which is on the payment schedule.
Yeah, so that's done.
So the extra is the repairing of the pipe where there's cracks.
Yeah.
And getting rid of the trees.
Which on Google Drive, I didn't get the,
See, the tree roots that have come, the old tree that you have to take all over the wall.
Yeah.
Today.
But there, I mean, for residents, there are 5 breakages or cracks in the sewer pipe, including one where roots, as Ian has just pointed out, are growing through the drains, which really, if we're sorting the drains out, we really ought to get them all fixed. And I think we've got a quote of £2,000, haven't we?
we have a quote of £2,000
Yeah.
to actually do that. But
Yeah.
To put that into perspective, the last time that there was a major blockage, we had to get a special big boring machine out. It was over £600 just to clear it.
just to clear it.
And this would be an ongoing thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it will be broken more.
Yeah.
We
So-
always, before you end on here, when you come in the front door there, and the lower there, there was always trouble there about,
Yeah.
always has been, part of the
There
work
are-
has been joined
There are
in.
notices up in the kitchen here and in the disabled toilet and the other toilets, showing a picture of the last blockage and how much it costs. And it said this was caused by people putting baby wipes and wet wipes down the drains. Don't do it.
No,
And
but-
people say, nobody ever admits to doing it. But every so often we get another blockage, at 600 quid a time.
Well, look, I'm suggesting rather than going any further on this, can we just move to a straight vote? Your proposal, we accept it.
I'm-
Vote for-
accept it.
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah, John is seconding, and all in favour.
Yeah.
Has to be done.
Okay,
That's a good part of their budget on there then.
well, that's,
Yes.
this is a long-standing problem, isn't it? That's,
Yeah,
and hopefully resolved.
Yeah.
Right, on to broadband. I had an email from the liaison officer saying that they've just got this one last piece of work to do in Bullington End Road, which will be a closure sometime between the 15th of March next week and, no, is it 21st of March? 21st of March and the 15th of April. I don't think it'll be very long. It's just, they've got to put 2 trenches across the road, and they've obviously got to close it for that. And then I think, if I interpret what she's saying correctly, they're hoping to have the broadband network ready for service, certainly in the second quarter, but I think actually it might be as early as April. She has offered a walk round for defects, and John, I know, has said that there are a number of defects that people have, residents have reported to him.
Yes,
And I'd be grateful if you could join me on that walk round. It will be a walking around the whole village.
that's all right.
I don't know if anyone else has had defects reported and wants to join. I mean, I'm aware of just a couple around here, and obviously I need to be there. I need to hammer to them that they have to replace the black tarmac in front of the village hall with with the correct one, and they keep marking it temps. They do know that they've got to replace it. So
Could we ask Norman Hill to put the same colour down to Duncan Yard?
he will be asked to do that. Yeah.
Do you know when
Well,
you're
actually,
doing
in
the
fairness, it will be Angry Morton.
do you know when you're doing the walk around? Was it
No,
on TV?
no. I mean, Rasheen was the liaison officer, was on leave last week. She'll be back in the office today. So I'll ask her. But I mean, I would imagine it will be at the end of the month. It'll be after the Bullington work has been done.
Right.
So, are you saying you'd like to? go?
Yeah, I mean, if I can make it, I
Okay.
work from home and stuff. It can come out.
Right, I'll start with Rasheen would be John,
A few
so to
parts
say,
of the village.
John, Darren and me.
So
Angela.
we're talking around about 31st of
I've no idea.
Oh, sure,
I'll
April.
see when she's ready, but.
Could you get a couple of dates or 3 dates?
Yes,
so we can-
I'll ask her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing children.
Okay. Now, moving on to slightly more pleasant aspects of it. Well, actually, that is pleasant, isn't it? Having broadband after the fight and the work that we put in last year to get fibre broadband, it'd be a major achievement. One of the things with the Gigaclear offering is that they offer what is called a community hub, which is where they offer for 12 months. And I think if I read the documentation correctly, it is then extendable by them to one premise. Can you say one premise? One premise in the village, where they will provide a 900 megabit connection for free. I think they're in exchange, they do ask that they can use a facility up to 4 times a year. Now, my suggestion was that we might want to offer this to the school in the first place, to see whether they would like that. But we would obviously, they can't let the school out for, so it would have to be the village hall that would be used for any events.
And if they don't want it, I'll volunteer in my house.
We can have a
Clerk's office.
Yeah. So are we all supportive of offering this to the school?
Yeah.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, okay. And then the final item is that after all this work, they did suggest that there might be some kind of opening event, and she said cutting a ribbon, but I think that's a bit naff. What I think might be more appropriate is if we ask them if they'd like to fund a little reception in here where they can have a board and they can actually use it as a sales promotion to the village. And the village has suffered all the diggings up.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they've been quite good. Most of the comments from residents have been, that Gigaclear have been quite
We'll
good.
see the mess they're making and runs out, they're on there taking and runs out, it's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, actually.
Yeah,
With somebody else having a different colour.
yeah. I mean, we took some trouble to build a good relationship with them actually, and I think that has maybe why it's different. They say it's why it's different anyway.
Overall, they've been jolly good.
Yeah.
I mean, saving the things I haven't reported to you, but
Yeah,
I think they've generally been
be.
pretty
And the
good.
workmen have been very accommodating about
Yeah.
letting people in and out their
Yeah,
premises
yeah.
and stuff like that, so.
So,
I'll tell you what would be nice, in January, they were doing, I think it's a 300 gigabit, no, 300, whatever it is, the 300 speed.
300 megabits a second.
For £17, supposed to normally 25, so that would be very nice. Do that, so that was a national offer they were doing.
All right, okay. Well, we'll perhaps. But look, I mean, my point is, would councillors be happy if I were to say to them, look, if you wanted to come, say on a Saturday, it'd have to be when it's free, and put on a kind of little promotion for the launch of the broadband in the village hall, and if you would like to provide some nibbles and you know, possibly even some other I'm not sure what alcoholic drink
Beverages.
you know, you'd have to provide that, and then yeah, that would be acceptable.
Yeah, so it's a nice idea.
All right, let's do that. Very good. 7.7 is youth club. Kay.
Okay, so the youth club have obviously been running, and one of the, in fact, the longest running youth club around, and have done a fantastic job over those years. All volunteers, they usually fund themselves, they do fundraising, they've obviously got their subs, and I think they do a really, really good service for the village and provide something for the young people in the village, which there is nothing else for them. They have really struggled over the last 18 months because of the pandemic, obviously not getting subs in, things like that. And because of that, they have their volunteers, so the parents and people that actually, the youth leaders, Now their DBS checks have run out, they haven't got first aiders. So they are really, really struggling to carry on. And I think that we should help fund. In fact, I think we should actually give the funding for what they have asked for, which is the DBS checks and the first aid courses, which allow them to carry on. It would be a one-off payment. They're not asking for a continuing thing. It's just something that they cannot manage at the moment. And obviously without this funding, without those DBS checks and first aid training, they don't adhere to legal or safeguarding. Therefore, I think it's really important, and I know that we have helped other organisations. This is a homegrown one in the village that has run successful for years and years and years without any help. And I just think in their time of need, I really do think that we should help. The funding is broken down. There's a letter from Tony Rice in there. Now I know Steve said that if we do the first aid courses, is that right? If we organise those, we get the back.
If we actually order and pay for the first aid courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So-
that is actually something which is of general benefit to the village.
Oh, it's
Whereas-
a mega thing.
Well, no, I mean, having emergency first aid trained people
Yeah.
is a good thing for the village. And I
Absolutely.
think it's fair enough for the parish council to pay for that directly.
Yeah.
For the DBS checks, that's specific to youth. So I think it would be, putting it bluntly, tax avoidance if we were to pay for that.
Oh,
So we would give them a grant
Yes.
instead.
yeah.
And that
That's
means
what I'm
that
asking
the
for.
VAT, if there is any, and Steve's not sure whether there is any.
I don't think there is a DBS for this education.
Yeah.
But there's 10 people who need the first aid course, which is £99, which actually that's quite reasonable to be honest, £99 each,
Yes.
obviously. And then plus the VAT, which is 1188, so 1,880. And then
1,188.
80. Oh yes, sorry. Minus obviously, but that's yeah. So
605.
okay, so it's 999 without the VAT,
Yeah.
because we get the VAT back. Okay, and then the DBS. There are 12 new and existing members that require new or renewal of DBS checks at a cost of £15 each, was 180.
Yeah.
Okay, and I that's obviously to meet safeguarding child welfare. These are costs that they cannot run without, and I think they provide an invaluable service to the village.
One thing we could ask, if we do this, is on Wednesday, when you have your meeting for the thing, if they can give a hand with that, with parking motors and things, whatever, for the Jubilee weekend.
Well, hang on, let's get one thing at a time.
Just funding,
This is making it
right,
transactional, isn't it?
Let's deal with the first point.
We didn't ask the preschool
I
to do
think
that.
Ian's farming instinct. He wants a deal.
I totally support what Kane said. I think it's a very honourable cause, and they've never asked us for money for it.
Well, they have, and we've
No,
always said
not for a long time.
Oh, no, they did, and we said no. I think this is.
I mean,
different ballgame.
we have helped preschool when it was both the previous and indeed the current through a reduction in hall fees, and so I do think in this exceptional case I'll be supportive. Shall we just move straight to a vote, because I think we're at open door stuff, aren't we?
Yeah.
All in favour?
Can I have a thought in a second?
Well, Kay's
I'll propose. John second.
Yeah, John second, yeah.
Okay.
Right, okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
I thought,
Right, we now move to the Rfo payment schedule, and with amazing foresight, Steve has put most of this on there already. He obviously knows us better than we know ourselves.
it was subject to approval.
Yeah, I know.
I was removed it.
Is it,
Right.
is 8.1 RFO, is that the updated one?
It's the one with the village hall cleaning on it. It's the one that's on Google Drive now.
Just very, very quickly, I received notification through BALC that, I mean, you'll struggle to believe this, that the salary scales have been agreed by the Society of Local Council Clerks, SLCC, and the negotiating body with effect from April. 2021. So we now have to pay Steve the increase for the full year, which is why you see that £488.
Worth every penny, Jim.
I didn't know.
Yeah, worth every cent.
I've been working to a lower scale point for I think about 3 years.
Yeah. So that's why you see that on there. Frankly, it is a disgrace that it takes so long to get done. And of course, the next increase is due from the 1st of April, but there we go. So you can see there the drain invoices subject to approval have been put in. Well, there's one which we had to do the video survey. And the £200 is in there anyway. Any questions? If you can hold the very last item, the Weathers Law Group, because that's subject to approval in part 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, in that case, I'll propose Russ is seconding and all in favour. Yeah?
Yeah.
Ian, are you okay with everything? Yeah. Very good.
There's one piece of other good news as well. As of next month, the direct debit for Talk Talk will be reduced by £4.
Oh, very good.
Because we're going paperless.
Very good. Right, moving on to correspondence. We received a letter, reference 5.1, we've already dealt with that. I put in your pack, the church has received a letter from the War Graves Commission. Apparently there's a war grave in the churchyard, and there's going to be a park that they're going to hook up and they're going to maintain the grave. But that's in your pack. There you go. Next, any other business? Mr. Wardle.
Yes, after Steve talked to us about the youth club, we're happy to give £500 for the war budget in the next council year towards paying for the first aid courses for the youth club.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you
really
very much,
kind. Thank
Chris.
That's
you.
very good. Very good. Much appreciated.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
That's good. Any other business, councillors, for noting? No.
There is a light on Shepperton gone. It's one near the green. It's a new bulb on it. But is it worth doing because it's one of the ones that's going to be?
Well, I would report it, but I have a feeling that they're not actually doing some of the bulbs. I think there's one opposite the school, which I've reported. Well, I reported that one and the one immediately opposite it by the school, which had the top knocked off, if you remember. And they did repair that one that had the top knocked off. But I've reported the other one first, and it's not been done. And I think they're waiting until they do the.
But that's their decision. Chair, can I just point out there? I think there's at least one document on Google Drive we put under any other business. There was an early notification of a planning application for, I think it's Mortisfield.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just to bring to attention. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, it is. It's in Maltings Court. It is. It is as you go into Maltings Court, the far right-hand one that backs onto Fox Cover.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a side extension, and we're actually putting an air source heat pump in. There you go.
Very sustainable.
But anyway, we'll discuss that next time.
Yeah.
But, the documents are all up on the planning portal if you want to look at that.
And the other one you talked to me about, that's not come up on to the planning yet.
No, I was surprised at that. This is a change of use for, I've forgotten her name now. It's Jan Taylor's daughter. Faye, yeah. Which is a change of use for the field down the bottom opposite Windy Harbour for into a dog walking area. That change of use hasn't come through yet.
It wasn't on the public record.
What concerned me, why it was brought to me, is that's I've had dug all the dirt out and put the high court down, chaps going down the road, car in front of him, ding his windscreen. So they should be a proper standing and a curb putting, you see.
Yeah.
Look at the issues we've had at top of.
Yeah. Well, Ian, I mean, we have to wait until it comes
Yeah.
before us. I think somebody must have spoken to them and said, by the way, you need a change of use for this. And that's why they're overshooting it.
No. Somebody told, I've come and trying to tell me I'm going to be a vehicle.
And that's why Faye rang me and said that they were putting this application change of use in, but it's obviously not been registered. Right, future meetings, if there's no other business, is 4th of April. I will have to give my apologies. Are you here for that? Yes, so Russell will chair. And then, really important, the annual parish meeting on the 11th. Steve will get all the invites out, then I'll be back to that.
I'll get the invites out, but I'll have to give my apologies. I'm probably not going to be here.
Well,
Yeah.
you presumably will be back.
I'll be back for that. I mean, when Steve and I discussed the fact he's not here, I mean, technically, the only person who lawfully has to be here is the chair of the parish council or the parish meeting, if it is. It's even in doubt whether the clerk has to be there, but we don't.
Oh, I don't think the clerk does have to be there.
Yes, it's so Steve does get let off that way. And we don't actually minute the meeting, it's only a note taken of it, so I think we'll come to some arrangement on that. We will try and record it so that everything is available, so there are any notes. We've got it. Okay.
So did you say try and record the AGM?
The annual village meeting.
We're going to record it.
Well, there's no reason why we
That's
don't.
a huge crowd.
Yeah,
You had a laugh.
we just use this microphone in front and we switch this.
Oh, fair enough.
microphone around. It's not
It's
very
got
hard, is
capacity
it?
to do that. Brilliant.
Well, you have a better every turn up there, John.
Oh, I think that's a lot of interest.
Right, okay. In that case, can I now close part one? Yeah. Right, so close part one. Thank you very much, Tony, for turning out again. Yeah, appreciated.
Does the do. I'm very sad.
Absolutely not.
Returning the gossip back to Gilcrease, that's what I.
Right. Look. Oh yes, I need to now stop this. So thank you all for everyone who's lasted through this far. And hopefully we'll see you on the 4th of April. Good night.